Hello guys, today we have another video about weird and rare ammo types. I got a few requests for this, and so I thought, especially with the comments on the previous video, I thought I'd make another one. You don't need to have seen the previous video, so if you like this one, you can just watch the first video after this one. And I will say as another follow-up, I didn't realize just how many vehicles have SAP in the game. But I can promise you the ammo types in this video are going to be rarer and in a lot of cases weirder as well. We're also still doing a giveaway for one premium pack, any of your choice, or the equivalent in Golden Eagles or Premium Time, which is 15k and 1 year respectively. There'll be more info about that further on in the video, so don't forget to smash that like and subscribe, and we'll get into it. So the first ammo type we're going to talk about is APHEDS on the mouse. It's listed in game as APCBC, but this isn't true, and you can see that by the name of the ammo type alone, which in English would be 12.8/8.8 centimeter, which by itself it just sounds weird. So a bit of history. It wouldn't really be a stretch to see the story of German cannons in World War II as this constant quest to accelerate 88mm projectiles to ever increasing speeds. Even in the opening days of the Second World War, the Flak 88 was being used in the anti-tank role. I mean, hell, even if you go a bit further back than that, it was first done in the Spanish Civil War before World War II even started. And so Mustache Man decided he liked the 88 so much, he explicitly ordered an 88 should be fitted into their new prototype heavy tank, the Tiger 1. Fast forward a few years and they have another prototype heavy tank. A 10.5 centimeter cannon was considered for the Tiger 2, but it would need 2-piece ammunition, so it was heavy, it was clunky, it would take longer to load. So instead, they went with a longer 88mm case, the actual projectile on the end being interchangeable in some cases. Then lastly, we reached the massive 12.8 centimeter KWK-44. This is the cannon that was fitted onto the Jagdtiger and the Mouse. At the time, with tungsten for the high velocity armor piercing being in short supply, tests were conducted using an 88mm Panzergranate 39 as the penetrator instead. And so we finally reached the APHEDS used on the Mouse. It's essentially the end of a Tiger 1 shell, the actual shell that's fired, but just put into a discarding sabot and fired out of a bigger cannon. In game, this is definitely worth using because it has better penetration and a higher velocity, so it'll go through more armor and it's easier to aim than the other shells as well. The main downside is that it has less explosive filler, but it still has 108 grams, so that should be more than enough to just clap any crew if it actually does penetrate. Next, we have the rocket-assisted HE as found on the AMX-30 Accra, the AMX-10M, and the Object 775. Now, unfortunately, I don't own any of these tanks, and I'm nowhere close, so the footage in the background is going to be the T-64, which it shares the most DNA with. I don't have any AMX tanks, so that's what we're going with. And honestly, I'm not really sure where to start with this ammo. In-game, at least, it behaves essentially the same as any other HE shell. In real life, they were more like unguided HE rockets. Again, they were intended for light targets like trucks and IFVs, as an alternate to the missile that it usually would fire against tanks, right? Both of these systems, developed by France and the Soviet Union, were developed during the 1960s, but were both ultimately cancelled. The French Accra system was cancelled because it was overly complex and expensive, while also being essentially inferior to the hot ATGM, which was also being developed by France. Its development in fact overlapped with the Accra and likely played a big role in its termination. The Soviet equivalent, the Object 775, was essentially outcompeted in the same way by another project, Object 434, which is more commonly known now as the T-64. It actually uses the same transmission and engine as the T-64, among other things. By the late 1960s, the ATGM tank hype that had also birthed the very cursed IT-1 was beginning to die down, and the conventional T-64 was just much more appealing and noticeably cheaper and simpler to produce. Anyone familiar with Soviet MBTs know that that is saying a lot, because for its time, the T-64 was the most expensive MBT the Soviets ever produced. Obviously, tanks like the T-80 are more expensive, but it was, 20 years in the future, essentially, so that helped offset the cost. Next up, we have another German goofball, the rocket-assisted Mortar on the Sturmtiger. The caliber of this thing is a monstrous 38 centimeters. A caliber more in common with naval artillery than tank cannons, which makes sense as this was originally developed by the Kriegsmarine to fire depth charges. This absolute beast will easily one-shot anything you meet, provided you get a direct hit. You pay for this insane damage with an equally insane reload. 52 seconds with a stock crew, making it, I'm pretty sure, the longest reload in the entire game. Also be warned that if the enemy shoots the barrel while you have a rocket loaded, it will detonate, and, wow, you can imagine what will happen to you then. As for the history side, this was another project that Mustache Man was a little bit too invested in. The idea was to wheel up a heavily armoured Tiger chassis with a gigantic cannon right up in front of bunkers or even entire buildings where the Soviets had entrenched themselves and just demolish the whole thing. It was mainly inspired by the heavy fighting on the Eastern Front when normal German siege weapons like the Sturmgeschütz or other assault guns were struggling to deal with reinforced concrete bunkers and things like that. Notably, actually, the Sturmtiger could also fire a heat shell in real life. This could penetrate 2.5 meters of concrete. Again, kind of points towards the intended use of this thing. But the original weapon wasn't actually ready in time for this thing, and that's why it was fitted with an adapted naval depth charge thrower, firing a 350 kilogram, 1.5 meter long rocket-assisted projectile. Also, if you're wondering about the weird thing on the roof, that's a crane. Because the projectiles are so ridiculous, they had to open the entire roof of the thing. Again, that's what the big hatch on the roof is for. They would have to open the roof, and the shell would be lowered into position with a goddamn crane. So yes, that's the Sturmtiger. And we've had 2 German goofballs, so now we're having our second Soviet goofball, which is the ATGM-VT. As found on the BMP-2M and the Sturm S. And yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an ATGM with a VT fuse for firing at aerial targets. Usually, and in real life, this is going to be used against helicopters, because the missile isn't particularly maneuverable, and the elevation of the launcher on both the BMP and the Sturm is pretty bad. But, as you'll see in the footage coming up, it can be used against planes with some creative use of sloped terrain. It's pretty rare to see these things in game because on the BMP you only get 2 sets of 4 missiles. So you have to give up 4 regular ATGMs for the possibility that you may shoot down a helicopter. And honestly, this isn't something that most players are interested in. It might be a little bit more flexible with the Sturm S because obviously you can load ammo 1 at a time and you've got an ammo capacity of 12, but yeah. However, this is by far the most successful munition on this list and probably on both lists. Development began in the last days of the Soviet Union, and it was completed and then later modernized by the Russian Federation. It can be used in a wide variety of ways, including on man-portable tripods. It can be mounted on vehicles like the Tiger, which is the Russian equivalent of a Humvee or an MRAP if you're an American viewer, and you know what those are. I mean, everybody knows what a Humvee is, right? So yeah. And it's even been reportedly deployed on the Orion drone system as well. It's a very versatile system, and it's even been exported to and adopted by foreign nations like Algeria and Serbia. It's been in production now for decades, and there's no sign of it slowing down for obvious reasons. But because of the way War Thunder works, it's never really going to see huge utilization in-game. Although, as I said, there are people that run it from time to time. Now, I wasn't even sure what to call this last one, but I've decided to go with ATGM-AP. And we're talking about the MGM-166 LOSAT, which stands for Line of Sight Anti-Tank. This is another vehicle I don't own, but I have some test drive footage, and as well a bit with the Abrams. So, what is this thing? Essentially, it behaves like rocket-assisted APHEDS, so it needs to accelerate up to speed to actually penetrate. So you can only really snipe with this thing for that reason. The penetration actually increases with range, unlike anything else in the game. So yeah, sniping only really. At point-blank range, this thing has 20 millimeters of penetration. And LOSAT is actually the name of the missile system, not the vehicle itself, and only 12 prototypes were actually built, but not what we have in game. The only known confirmed LOSAT systems were actually mounted on Humvees for testing, not anything with tracks. There were concepts to mount it on a Bradley IFV, or even the M8 AGS chassis, which is what we have in game. But there's no evidence that this was anything more than a non-functional demonstrator or a mock-up vehicle. And the reasons for its cancellation are actually much the same reasons as it's not very good in game. There were large and well-founded concerns about close-range engagements, the large size of the launcher, the expensive ammunition, and the absence of an opponent. The collapse of the Soviet Union made this project essentially useless. This is another baby of the late Cold War, and priorities changed. Massive tank battles on the fields of Germany were no longer a real prospect. This thing was also designed to penetrate the armor of a main battle tank from the front, but top attack munitions like Javelin could do the same job essentially, for a fraction of the cost. And so, LOSAT was cancelled and it never left the prototype stage. So, that's the video guys. Thank you for watching to the end. A bit more about that giveaway now. This is a giveaway for the squadron. So, in order to enter, you'll need to be a member of the in-game squadron. You'll also need to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And the last thing is to just be a member of the Discord, because that's where I'm going to be announcing the winner. And that's where I'll try and get in contact with the winner as well. So you just do those three things. You're entered to the giveaway. And you will have actually a fairly decent chance of winning, because the squadron can only have 128 members. So that's probably a pretty decent chance, right? I would say though, last time I checked we have 103 members, so there aren't a whole lot of slots open. The full details are also in one of the channels on the Discord if you want to get the full info on the giveaway. So, thank you for coming guys. Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe, and hey, maybe watch part 1 if you found this video interesting.